Ladies and gentlemen and vector graphic designers, we're going to do tutorial 03. We're going to learn how to use the curve tool to make, guess what? Curves. All right, so here's the deal. We need to open up lesson 3 to get us started. And so we got to go find that thing and open it up. Okay, so you need to make sure you grab the zoom tool and zoom in. If you press shift, it'll zoom out, but get yourself to where you can see it. Go to layers, and so you want to make sure, let me close this thing. So make sure that you're click on the drawing layer. That's the layer we want to work on. And so we're going to use the curve tool to actually make a Bezier curve. Okay, a Bezier curve is a curve that's made up of mathematical formulas. It has nodes and it has handles. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So I'm going to click right here. Wherever I click is a node, and then I'm making a handle. The handle tells us what direction does the curve go in. So in this particular case, we're gonna make this little outline, this little curve, but we're gonna start by going straight up. So I'm gonna press Control, and that's gonna help me go straight up, and I release, and you can see that it's already starting the curve. If I click on where this node goes, and I'm gonna go straight down, and I'm not going straight down, so I'm going to press Control on the keyboard, and that helps me go straight down. And so I'm going to get this curve going. Now, one thing to know about curves is you always look ahead. We're trying to get the curve looking good ahead. We don't look backwards. So because we're going to go back and fix that later. So I click where the node goes, and I drag straight up, release, and I click, and I drag straight down, and I click, and I drag straight up, and I click, and I drag straight down. Okay, and then when I'm done, I go right there. Now I want to be able to see this really well, so I'm going to press shift, and I'm going to click on this to make it nice and blue, and I'm going to go to I'm going to right click here, and right click, and I'm going to go to fill and stroke, and I'm going to go to the stroke style, and I'm going to increase this to make this bigger so we can see it. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to go back and edit this to make it perfect. So if you go to this tool, this is the select and transform tool. It will get shapes, it'll get paths and objects and move the whole thing. Okay, but that's not what we want to do. We want to edit individual items. So we're going to go to this tool right here. So it edits paths by nodes. So we're going to click right there, and so if we wanted to, we can move the node around. Okay, so we're going to move that node right there, and then we're going to click on the handle, and we're going to bring this down. We're going to bring it straight down right there, so that looks just about right. Okay, so this one, we're going to drag this handle. It helps if you press Control because it constrains it to be straight up down. So I'm going to grab this handle and align it with that one. If we wanted to, by the way, you can go View, and you could turn on the page grid, and you could line these things up that way. That seems a little bit hard for me, so I'm going to turn off the page grid. But at any rate, that's an option. So I'm going to click this one. I'm going to drag it straight down and get it aligned where I want. So I'm going to grab this. The first thing we need to do is get these things in the right spot, actually. So let me drag this one where it needs to go. Okay, and so and I can use the arrow tool to move it as well. So I'm going to click and drag that straight up. I'm going to click and drag this one back. I'm going to click and drag this one back. And this one looks right. I'm going to click on this one. I'm going to use the arrow keys to get it where it needs to be, and then I'm going to drag this straight up. Okay, I'm going to drag this node and put it where it needs to be. And this handle is going to come up, and then I'm going to drag this one where it needs to be, and this handle comes up. Okay, so that looks pretty good to me. So what we're going to do now is we're going to draw it again ourselves. So we're going to go to the Bezier Curve tool. We're going to click, drag straight up. We're going to click, drag straight down. We're going to come over here. We're going to click and drag straight up. We're going to come over here, click and drag straight down. we're going to come over here and we're going to click and drag straight up. Okay, and so now what we're going to do is we're going to make sure these things are all aligned. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to press the Shift key so I can select more things. Shift, Shift, Shift. And I'm going to come to the alignment tool. So I'm going to click right here. This is the align and distribute tool. And what we want to do is there's a section that sometimes it doesn't look like this. Sometimes it's larger. But at any rate, so there's a section that says nodes, and we want to align these things this way. And so basically what just happened is these all got lined up. And so now I can use this tool to drag these all to the same height. So we'll drag this one straight up. Oops. Click there. I'll drag this one straight up. Something like, we'll keep playing with these until it hits that dotted line, and we'll drag this one down, straight down until it hits the dotted line. Something like that. The other thing we could do is we could distribute these things evenly. So let's see. Well, we won't mess with it. All right, so make sure you save your changes. If you didn't already save it in the right spot, make sure you're saving it into your Inkscape tutorials. And hit save on that. And I'm going to replace it because I want the new version. Okay, so let's make sure we've got everything done. Yep, we took these notes. We learned how to use align and distribute. Okay. All right. So a Bezier curve is a curve in a vector-based illustration program like Inkscape. So vector-based means it's not using pixels. It's not a picture. It's actually a drawing. The curves are made up of mathematical formulas. It has control points. So it has a node. That's where you start. And then it has this direction line. And then the last thing is a handle. Okay, so write this down in your notes. All right, so different modes of the curve tool. So I want you guys to explore different ways. So when I'm teaching the curve tool, I'm going to be using the nodes to do it. But there's other ways to do it. There's the Spyro path. There's the B-spline. By the way, if you ever use Autodesk Inventor, it uses B-splines. Explore these different ways of making curves. Just so you know, you can play around with different ways and find something that maybe will suit you better. Okay, so we saved 3. Now it's time for 4. So we're gonna go to Inkscape. We're gonna go File, Open. We're gonna open Lesson 4, and we're gonna get started with this one. All right. So the first thing we're gonna do is gonna go to Layer, Layer. And we're going to make sure that we're on the drawing layer. And we're going to zoom in on our artwork. And so in this one, we have to make these curves with corners. Instead of smooth curves, they have these pointy corners. And so we have to work a little bit different. Okay, so what we do is we're going to go to our Bezier curve. We're going to go make sure we're in mode is the regular Bezier path. You can press Control, and that constrains you. And then you're going to get here, and you're going to go straight down. Okay, but what you're not going to do is come over here because that does not make the kind of curve we want. We want a different kind of curve. So we're going to try that again. We're going to click and drag straight up. We're going to click and drag straight down, but this time we're going to hit the Shift key. We're pressing and holding the Shift key, and so we're changing the direction of the curve, and we're going to go right on top of this last handle, and we're going to release the Shift and release everything, and release the mouse. So I'm going to click, drag straight down. I'm going to press Shift, drag straight up, and I release both the Shift and the mouse. Click, drag straight down, Shift, drag straight up, and release the Shift and release the mouse. Click, drag, Shift, drag, and release the Shift and release the mouse. Click, and then drag. Okay, so that we're going to right click to be done. Again, we can go to our Edit Node tool, and we can move these things to where they need to go to get them perfect. and we can go to this one, use the arrow keys. We could, if we want to drag, we can click and drag. Anyway, and then we can adjust our handles at that point. So we can use this tool and adjust this one up. We can adjust this one up. Okay, and so we can get it just right. Okay, so that's it for that one. All right, and you can practice that one down here in the work area. And so let's do this one. This one's a little bit different. So we're going to go back to our Bezier Curve tool. So we click, drag straight up on this one. And again, I like pressing Control, and then I click, and I drag straight down. Now on this one, I release, and I right click to be done. Okay, and so then because what happens is we have this curve, and all of a sudden now we're getting rid of the curve. It's a straight line. So we click, and we click, click, and I release, and I right click to be done. And so now on this one, I have no curve, and I want to start the curve. So I click, I drag straight down using Control, release. No, don't release. I click and drag. I click and drag straight up, and I release. And I right click, and I'm done. So I click, and I right click to be done. I get back onto my path. I click and drag straight up to get this curve going again. Pressing Control helps. And I click and drag. Now that's a little bit, that one's tricky. You might have to right click to be done. All right, and again, you always want to go hit your edit node tool, and so you click and you get this thing right where it needs to be. You can click on this guy, get him set up a little bit nicer. Anyway, we can go click here, bring this guy down a little bit, and this guy, scoochie him over. Anyway, so you get that perfect. You might need to do it again, but again, the trick is to do this section, be done, and then click on it to start again. Okay? All right, so I think that's it for this video. Let's see if there's anything, the control key. Okay, so yeah, that's it. So on the next one, we're going to finish up on the third video with 5 and 6, and then we're going to go on to the challenges.